You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt McGackie, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
Hey, what is up, good people? We've got another one for you here. I'm super stoked about this one. This one was so much fun. Mario and I met digitally via the internet because he shared something that I thought was really cool, and I reshared it, and now here we are. I talk about that with him in the beginning of this episode, but I wanted to give a quick plug real quick. If you've ever considered supporting the show via Patreon and you're looking to get those spicy extra episodes, this week is a very good week to do that. Mario and I allegedly, of course, this is all alleged and may or may not have happened, share some stories from our youth that are somewhat colorful. And I think that a lot of people will be able to relate to them and also get a kick out of them. Again, it's all alleged. We definitely share some stories, but they are alleged tales of some, hooliganism from our youth. And so if you've been thinking about doing that, this week is a good week to do it. You can go to patreon.com/tonemob, and for as little as $5 a month, you'll get extra episodes beamed to your ears every week. And this week is especially spicy, in my opinion. So without further ado, let's get into this podcast with Mario Miner from Minor Glitch Electronics. This is a fantastic one. Enjoy. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar tone and the people behind it. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today, I have Mario Miner from Minor Glitch Electronics. What's going on, dude?
Hey, buddy. I'm doing good, man. Just hanging out.
Yeah, this is always fun. It's always fun to see the weird ways that the internet brings us together. I saw your build of a pretty unique lap steel guitar situation.
Yeah.
Had to share it, so I shared it. We started talking. I was like, gotta get this guy on the podcast, and then here we are.
Yeah, dude. I appreciate that, man. That was definitely one of the most challenging builds I've had in quite a while. Yeah, I had a buddy of mine contact me probably a couple months ago, and we just started spitballing ideas, and he whipped out that ammo crate, and that's what we came up with, and yeah, it was a fun build for sure.
Why don't you tell everybody what it is for those that may have not seen the video?
What it is, it's a amp / lap steel combo thing, kind of playing off those old Silvertone tube amp guitar combos where the case is your amp, but this is kind of different in a way because the lid of the actual case is your lap steel. So you basically just take off the lid and you can set that on your lap, and the amp is battery powered, so you can be anywhere and you just jam out, and you just plug into the actual body of the case, I guess, and just jam out. But it's basically made out of just junk I had laying around my shop, and some of this stuff I've had laying around for years and years and years, and just put it all together and just came up with some weird, crazy instrument. The bridge is made out of a door hinge, and
Nice.
yeah, if you look into it, it's made out of a door hinge, and then the part where the strings sit on, I guess the saddle is made out of bone, and then the nut is a bolt that I pressed into a railroad spike that I had to chop up a little bit. And what else? The pickup itself is a Bic cigarette lighter that a guy made for me. His name is Ryan Ruckavina. He's another builder out of Missoula, Montana. He has a company called Ruckavina Guitars. Super cool guy, super talented fella. He knows what he's doing, and he's a smart cat. But what else is on that guitar? Just other like junk parts from other guitars that I've had just laying around the shop. The fretboard is made out of a Brazilian, what is it? Brazilian rosewood, I believe.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and I got that from like a rummage sale probably like 2 years ago from a guy that makes like these, what was he doing? He was making birdhouses out of exotic wood. So basically like these bird mansions, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he posted up like on Facebook somewhere, and I saw it. And, you know, I saw the price of what he was, you know, for what he was selling. He was selling like that Brazilian rosewood, some purple heart, some yellow heart, all for like super cheap. So I just basically didn't say anything, grabbed my keys, hauled booty out the door, and went straight over to this guy's house and just bought out all of this crazy exotic wood at like dirt cheap. And, but yeah, the fretboard is made out of Brazilian rosewood. And for the inlays for that, I used Colt 45 shells that I got from another buddy of mine. And let's see, the amp part of the build was basically just like a 0.5 watt battery powered amp. And some of the parts were taken from the guy who gave me the box. He also gave me like all these like meters and gauges, because I guess his grandpa used to be a TV repairman from like back in the day. You know, he used to repair like these like old like tube TVs, and he gave me all these like meters that were broken and stuff. And what I wound up doing was actually incorporating that into the amp section. Not too many people know that, because like that's not shown like on the video. But yeah, I was able to incorporate some of his his own family's stuff into his build as well. So
Cool.
yeah, I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, and what kind of ammo can was it again? It wasn't like a regular ammo can. It was something crazy.
Oh yeah, it was 75 millimeter. Oh goodness, ammo for like a recoilless rifle. It's they used it for or they use those for setting off avalanches, like
Whoa.
here, like yeah, like around here. And it's like this massive like tripod, like, you know, gun looking thing, a gun, I guess. And yeah, they shoot them up on the mountains and just like trigger avalanches and stuff like that. And yeah,
Like controlled ones, so they don't get out of control, right? That's the idea.
Yes. And yeah, each box, I guess, only carries like 2 of the shells for those. So those things are massive, man.
Yeah, for those that haven't seen it, you can see it over on either of our Instagram pages, but probably easier on yours. But it's big. Like, it's a big box. It's like it's like a guitar case. Like, so you can imagine a couple bullets that would fit in a guitar case. That's it's not messing around. It's serious stuff. That's crazy, man. So how did you get started doing all this? You obviously you build pedals, you have some other amps you've done. How did you get started, you know, messing around with music stuff?
In the beginning, it was I was going to school for I was in college, and I was going to school for psychology, and I was kind of like procrastinating. I was writing a paper, and I was like procrastinating. The paper was due like the next day or something. And my wife was like cleaning our little study area. And I was just, you know, I had a writer's block and everything, and here I was just like spinning around in our office chair, and I had like a little practice amp sitting next to a 50 caliber ammo can. And I was just sitting there, and all of a sudden the idea, the thought came to mind. I was like, man, wouldn't that be cool if you can like put that, the guts of this practice amp into this ammo can, and I just like, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Like I stayed up like pretty much and like late into the night, just constantly thinking about how I can create this. So I got online and I looked up like diagrams and schematics. And at that time, I had no clue what any of those things were. I had very little knowledge. I didn't even know how to solder really. And just through trial and error, came through and found like a little amp circuit, LM. What was it? LM386 like amp circuit, and was able to cobble things together. And I think my first amp that I built took me, honest to God, like 2 months, just because I didn't know a single thing. I was ordering like piece for piece and learning how to solder. And it came to the time where I finally put my first amp together, and I flipped the switch, and it didn't work.
Yeah, I know
And,
that feeling.
dude, yeah, it's heartbreaking, and it's just like, oh my gosh, And after a while, I was just like, this ain't for me, and I just kind of put it down for like a week. But yeah, I just like, man, I got to figure it out. And I came back together, and I guess I just put like one of the leads of the resistors like in the wrong spot. And so just like one quick fix, and here my amps fired up and everything. And yeah, that's kind of how it started off, and just tinkering, and I've had that 50 cal like ammo can for a number of years, just packing it around, just for like decoration, really,
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, my dad always had one in our trailer growing up. I'm pretty sure he still does have it, like the one we would take hunting and stuff. And it was where that was the first time I ever saw an ammo can not in like a military surplus store or something. And he used it to hold all his wrenches. Like people use them for all kinds of different things. These 50 cal ammo cans. It's funny that they're so common. Like they're not hard to find. They're easy to find.
I know, dude. Yeah, it's crazy. There was like a point like a couple of years ago where I'd go to like, pawn shops and stuff, and you can find it. But then I started discovering that I was buying all of these pawn shops out of their ammo cans. And then after a while, I found out that I can buy them at a little bit less of a price, but they were like blank. They didn't actually say like 50 cal or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked, the lettering and the words and stuff like that, on there. And so that's when I really started trying to figure out like how to screen print, because I had no background in screen printing or anything like that either. So just looking up YouTube videos and like Google, anything about screen printing, and finally was able to figure it out. And now I can just, that's what I do now, is I screen print all of my ammo cans. But every once in a while I have somebody like come by and like give me a few ammo cans, and like some of them like have like old like rusty nails or like fishing tackle stuff, or tools and stuff like that in them. So yeah, it's pretty crazy what people use them for.
That is very interesting. Like, it's just another weird way of expressing ourselves.
Yeah, you can tell a lot about somebody by what they put in their ammo cans, I guess, huh?
That's right. It's not, do you have ammo cans? It's, what do you put in yours?
You put in bad boys.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of funny. They've even made like new versions of the classic ammo can that are like plastic and like waterproof. It's
Yeah.
like this weird little design that was made for one purpose has been reimagined in a million different ways, just about any
Yep.
way you can think of. It's really funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I've
So
seen some of the plastic ones, but yeah, I don't care to work with those, because I don't
no,
know, they
not for
don't
what you're doing.
carry the same, yeah, they don't carry the same aesthetic, So.
Yeah, it's not the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that you were a musician first, though. Like you play guitar. I hate to assume that about everybody, because then I've heard people be like, "Oh, I actually no, I don't play guitar. I'm a drummer," and it's just like, "Oh, well, that's different."
I
But
know, dude, it's wild. Like learning from like other like people, like the dude that started Mesa Boogie. Like I think he was like a keyboard player or something like that. But yeah, I play guitar. I played in bunch of different like punk and like rock and roll bands throughout the years, and I bought my first electric guitar here in Bozeman back in like 2005, because prior to that I was just a bass. I was a bass player, and then I came after I graduated high school. We came to visit my brother, who was living here at the time, and my parents took me down to this music shop downtown called Music Villa, and that's where I got my first electric guitar. Music Villa is still there, and man, that's like one of the best music shops that I've ever come across, like in the Pacific Northwest, hands down.
we've got some good ones around in this neck of the woods. I haven't never explored Montana. I've been there. I was there as a kid. We went and did this whole dude ranch thing in Wyoming and Montana, and it was a lot of fun. But like, I wasn't old enough to really, think about the differences between towns and things like that. I was just like, I'm here to pretend to be a cowboy. Here I am.
Yeah, we still got that, Wild West aesthetic, that Wild West vibe to us over here,
It seems like a place I would enjoy spending more time. I've just never really thought about it all that much. I actually had a mutual friend of ours, Hank from Rattlesnake Cables, came on years ago, and he was like, man, we actually have a good music scene here in Missoula. I'm like, you do?
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Yeah, man, Hank is awesome, man. I love Hank. I was actually just chit-chatting with him probably like, goodness, probably last week sometime. And we're always, talking. He's kind of like my mentor, you know what I mean? He's such an intelligent dude, and being able to, call him my friend is, dude, it's great.
Yeah, Hank rules. He's awesome, dude, for sure.
Yeah, his cables too, man, top notch. That's all I rock these days.
I got a couple of them here myself. It's good stuff.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, he was one of the first people to sponsor the podcast way back in the day, which was very kind of him.
Awesome.
So, yeah, he's a good guy. We go back a little ways. Not probably as tightly as you guys do, but yeah, he was a supporter of the show early on, and he was an early guest. I think he was the first guest that I had that used an Android phone, and that was an interesting thing we had to overcome.
Yeah.
Well, because a lot of the listeners will know, like, this show has been around for a while, and in the early days, I was using this app that we use to record has an interface. The reason I started with it is because it has a app on the phone where you can record podcast on the phone, and that was the only way I could do it, because I was literally recording at work. like run off to the laboratory and record a podcast, and I could only use my phone, and everyone I had ran into used an iPhone, and it worked just fine, and Hank was the first one to use an Android on me, and it didn't work fine. Not because of the Android, I don't think. It was just one of the weird, like an early stage of the app where it would just was like, I don't know what to do with this. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I love this thing. Without this app, it's not perfect. It definitely has issues, and people have heard it have audio issues and things here and there over the years. But show wouldn't exist without it. So I'm really happy it exists, especially right
Yeah,
now.
I'm definitely new to the iPhone family because I was an Android cat for goodness gracious up until probably like a year ago. But yeah, so I'm still getting used to all of this stuff, and I have this MacBook Pro, but I don't even know how to use it.
Well, you were able to get on the podcast, so that's all that matters, right?
Yeah, well, I had my wife setting up all of this stuff last night. She knows how to do all of this stuff. She's like, okay, he's probably going to send you an invite or something. So you're already signed into your email. Use this email, and then you're ready to go. I was like, oh, okay.
Well, she was 100% correct. That is exactly what happened.
She's a smart lady. I'm going to say that one more time. She is a smart lady.
Shout out to your wife. I don't know her name. So
yeah, Twilight, we're talking about you in good graces, girl.
Shout out to the wives out there.
Yeah.
I couldn't do any of this without my wife. So thanks, Lynn. Thanks for all your help. I appreciate it.
Hey, yeah, Lynn. That's awesome, man. Yeah.
One of these days she might actually come on the podcast. We'll see. I don't know. I'm in this weird flux state with the show. So like I recently redid the description because if you looked at the old description, you would really think that you were getting into a show that was going to be like getting into the nitty gritty of different resistor values, changing the sound in some way. And it hasn't been that really ever. It never has been. And so it's really just about the people and what they're into. And, guitars are like the centering point, and we might talk about them the whole episode. We might not talk about them at all. And so I've been in this really weird, I redid the description to kind of make it more accurate. But lately I've been considering doing a completely different podcast where it's not just guitar people that I'm talking to. Because right now it's like guitarists and bassists or people who are involved in making equipment for guitars and bassists. And I've really been interested in people who just live life a different way than most people do. They maybe they live in a tiny house, or maybe they are a journalist, or maybe they are a power lifter, or maybe, insert whatever. Some people who just do things a little differently than the norm. And I'm like, maybe I can make a podcast about that, because I find all that to be really fascinating too.
I'd be down to listen.
Well, we'll see. Now that I put it out there into the podcast ether, the listeners can tell me if they care about that or not, but we will see. It's been on my mind a lot lately. I'm probably going to try it just because I don't have anything else to do. It's not like I'm already too busy or anything like that. Anyway, so you said you played in a lot of punk and rock and roll bands and stuff. Like, who are some of your influences?
Let's see. Well, rock and roll, for me, it always derived from the blues, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, Robert Johnson, B.B. King, all those guys. That's what I grew up listening to, my parents listened to like a lot of like moldy oldies is what they called it. And so that's all I knew for a greater part of my life, and then after I got older and, because I lived in like a very rural part of Montana, like we lived either on Fort Belknap, which is a reservation, or else a little town like 3 miles off the reservation called Harlem, Montana. And that's smack dab in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so there, we didn't have any record stores. We didn't have any music shops, nothing like that, and we used to order all of our music in, I forget, it was a Columbia House, I think is what it was called. And my mom would would let me have like a few choices, you know. And I remember one of the first albums that I got was like from the Clash. You know,
Oh
I thought
man.
that was a cool name. So after that, dude, oh man, that hit me like a whirlwind, you know. And then my brother also, he lived down here in Bozeman, and he was a radio DJ, and so he would also bring back like boxes full of singles from all these like different bands and like a bunch of like local bands from around here in Bozeman. And there was this one band out of Rapid City, South Dakota, that changed my life. They're called the Redmen, and they're like a Native American like punk band. And yeah, so the Clash, the Redmen, of course, you know, like Sex Pistols, and then what else? Yeah, that's all I can think of really right now.
And then you just go into starting to play in those type of bands and write that kind of music, or what did it look like from there?
At that, you know, when up there, you know, you what the heck happened? I got into nobody played that type of music up there, you know, at the time. And I think when I got my first bass guitar, I was still in high school. And it was like one of those things where like my mom was like, if you get, you know, this many A's or something like that, you know, you get good grades, she'll get you, or she said that she'd get me a bass guitar. And I wanted to play bass because, you know, it's that old, you know, excuse, like because it only has 4 strings. And heck was it? So yeah, I got good grades, and then she got me this silver tone bass guitar. It was kind of like a bass pack from Sam Goody, back when Sam Goody was still around. And after I got home, shoot, I wasn't even home for like 10 minutes. And here I get a knock on the door, because news travels fast up there, you know? You know, I wasn't even home like 10 minutes. And all of a sudden somebody's knocking on my door, and like, hey, we heard that you play bass and you want to be in a band. I was like, I don't know how to play bass. I just got it. Oh, that's good enough. Let's go.
Right.
And
we need a bass player, and you have one. Therefore, you are a bass player now.
Yeah, dude. That's how it was. And so, yeah, they drove, you know, because at that time I was living in Harlem, and like I said, that's only like 3 miles off the reservation. So they drove from a little neighborhood in Fort Belknap called Rodeo Drive, and that place is wild for sure. You got so many dang res dogs up there that, man, they travel in packs, crazy stuff, cars all over the yards and all of that mess. And so they came from Rodeo Drive over to my little trailer in Harlem, and they asked me if I can play bass. And man, I was shaking. Let me tell you, I didn't even know what the, you know, the names of the strings were, or the notes, you know, of the strings. I didn't even know nothing like that. But yeah, so I just, you know, rolled the dice, took a shot, and then went and played with them, and was in this native like punk band for a little bit, and then played with them for a couple of years. And what was it? I got with my wife. She and I met at a summer camp in North Dakota, but she's from Nebraska, and of course I'm from Montana. And after I graduated high school, I moved down to a rural town in Nebraska. That's where she's from. And I joined another punk band up there, but it was kind of in a area where bands that were on tour would like frequently travel, and it was kind of like a dead spot. So we'd always get like bands from like Seattle. Yeah, a lot of bands from Seattle would cruise through, because they would play in either Rapid City, South Dakota, and try to make the little trek into like to go to Denver. But where I lived was this town called Shadron, Nebraska, and that's like a hour and a half south of Rapid City. And so they would come through and play in that area. And yeah, we'd always play in just like the weirdest places. Like one of the venues that we'd play a lot was like this abandoned middle school. And there's like, oh gosh, who do we play with? There's, oh goodness, there's a band called The Greenery. I think they were from California. And then, yeah, I don't know, just a bunch of bands from like the West Coast would cruise through there. And yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be like just a completely different experience. Like, obviously, like I'm the whitest dude on the planet, and like I've only like drove through reservations and stuff. It's got to be just like a completely different experience growing up in that environment, especially for a aspiring punk rocker. I would have to imagine. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that was wild. Like I said, like we didn't have any record stores, you know, like any buddy that would come through with like a new, like, you know, new to us album. Like we had that album would get like shared throughout your friends group, you know, like, oh, this guy would borrow it for this long and this person would borrow it for this long. So that's kind of how we like would listen to our music. And then like when it came to like actual music gear, it's basically anything that, you know, anybody like had, or else whatever Sam Goody had over over, you know, down the road in Havre, you know, which was like 45 miles west of where we were, you know, like anything that Sam Goody had. And yeah, like if you broke a string, dude, you were out for however long. You know, sometimes it would be like a month or two, you know, either you would learn how to play without that string, or else you would just, you know, sit there and go crazy. But
good thing you played bass. Made that a little less likely.
yeah, that was the good thing about that, because I've seen a couple of my friends and my relatives break strings on their guitars and just, oh dude, be down for the rest of the day, like just be so upset for, you know, for days afterwards, and like, you know, have to come to grips with that that they broke a string.
Dude, I do relate to that because, you know, not quite the same way. Obviously, I wouldn't be out for months, but I just remember so many times going to my buddy's house, who kind of lived a little bit in the sticks, not like way in the sticks, but everybody knows. Well, not everybody. Lots of people who listen to the show know my good friend Justin Porter. He's been on a couple episodes. We would go to his house, and his house was, you know, 15 minutes from my house, when my house was, you know, 30 minutes from the closest guitar store. Yeah. And we'd spend all afternoon getting the drums set up and getting everything set up and getting ready to go. Start playing 3 songs in, I broke my low E. And it's just like, oh. And I was, of course, yeah. And it's just the whole day's ruined. And especially, you know, we were playing punk too, so you got to have the low E. I might be able to get by without a high E, but not the low E. Oh, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, and then what the heck was it after playing, like, you know, punk stuff for a while? The heck was it, my band broke up, and kind of went and lived off. Both me and my wife lived together, and kind of a crazy story on how I got into like blues and rock and roll. We was living, you know, in this little trailer, you know, in the town that we was living at in Shadron, Nebraska. And we'd been together for a couple of years, you know, still kind of in that, you know, super like Twitter-pated state. And I was working at this fast food joint called Taco John's. And what the heck was I was working the opening shift. So I was there like at 5:00, and I'd have to like prep food and all this and that. And what the heck was it? My wife, she texted me just a little simple, like, "I love you." you know, and oh, dude, my heart was all fluttery, while I was working, and I was not thinking about what I was doing, and I was sharpening a knife, and I wound up like slicing my index finger on my fretting hand. And I almost like,
Oh,
yeah, dude, I almost cut my finger off.
whoa.
And yeah, it was wild. I won't not cut my finger off, but I cut it down to the bone. And yeah, I was a real stubborn cat then, I didn't like doctors whatsoever. And so they sent me home, and I wound up using a wooden clothespin that I tore apart, and I used that as a splint, and I wrapped like cotton gauze and some tape over it.
Oh, man.
And yeah, that's how I took care of myself. But I couldn't play guitar because I couldn't bend that finger, and anytime I would bend any of my fingers, like that one would want to bend and it would hurt. And I was thinking like, oh man, like what can I do? Like I'm going stir crazy because I can't work and I can't play guitar, and I was listening to some of those old blues tunes, and I think I was listening to Muddy Waters, and I heard that slide, and I was like, how is he doing that? And so I looked it up, and come to find out, he was using a slide. And the music shop there was like a small music shop in that town we was living in. It was so small that it was a music slash muzzleloader slash archery shop.
Okay, just whatever this person was interested in, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like a 3-in-1 shop, and he had a slide, like a little silver like Dunlop slide. And so I got one of those, and yeah, I was able to slide it on my pinky and not move any of my other fingers around and still be able to play a little bit to make, some noise. And yeah, so that's kind of how I really got into blues playing and slide playing, is because I almost chopped my finger off.
I mean, sometimes it's like just necessity makes you learn a new skill. It's like, I'm going nuts.
Yeah.
That finger healed up okay, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it still aches whenever it gets cold up here, but it helps me predict the weather anyway. That and my knees.
Yeah, I never understood that when I was younger. I'd hear like, oh, the weather's going to change. I'm like, why? My elbow's flaring up. Like, what are you talking about, old man? You going crazy? And now I'm like, man, my elbow's flaring up. It must be getting colder. Like, the old men were right. They were right.
Yeah, they were, man.
They pretty much always are in my experience so far. It's like, oh, yeah, there's another thing my dad was right about. Okay, all right, fine. Man, crazy stuff.
Yeah,
so playing slide is not something that I am good at all. I'm really terrible at it. Do you have any tips for somebody like me?
Shoot. Practice.
Cut your finger.
There you go. Get good.
Yeah.
What works best for me is using my, just putting on my pinky. I've seen other people like put it on different fingers, and try not to choke the neck, I guess, and don't push down too hard. You don't have to push down whatsoever. And also use like thicker gauge strings is what I found that works the best for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and try not to cut your finger off.
Okay, all right, I'll do all of those things.
There you go.
How heavy do you go in, and what tuning do you play in?
Mostly I play in like open D. I switch between open D and open G, and I play like 13s.
Okay.
Yeah. Lately I've been playing a lot in open G just because like, the old blues guys, that's what they played in. And you just have just that certain like tone and vibe about it,
Yeah.
So
definitely. What kind of guitars are you playing?
I switch between a lot. my main guitar is a D'Angelico EXDC that I picked up like 6 years ago and like heavily modified. Recently I put in some bare knuckle, was it Pig 90s? It's basically like a War Pig version of like their humbucker, but in like a P90 version. And I installed like an arcade button kill switch in it,
Nice.
kind of like a bucket head type of vibe. But there's a guy that used to run like this old like a vintage video game shop here in town. And I asked him if he knew anybody with like arcade consoles or anything like that. And he's like, oh yeah, I got a buddy that repairs arcade consoles. And he ripped this arcade button out of like an old Street Fighter console and sold me that for like $5. And that's what I put in my guitar. And it's a semi-hollow. So I had enough area and to fit it in there. And that's what I use as a kill switch, is like an old arcade button.
Very cool. I love it.
Yeah, and recently I got my old 1952 Gibson ES-125 back.
Ooh.
And yeah, dude, that thing is amazing. I mean, the pickup on that thing for being like 68 years old, it's about as old as my mom. It sounds great, it sounds absolutely amazing. Yeah, heck was it? I bought it probably like 4 or 5 years ago, and I was using that a good while, and then there just came a time where I was just, I don't know, man, I wasn't thinking clearly, and I sold it. I sold it to a buddy of mine here in town, and yeah, ever since I sold it, dude, I was so regretful. And then probably like, goodness gracious, probably like 3 or 4 days ago, he hits me up on the old face space and asked if I wanted it back, and I was like, yeah, dude. So he brought it back, and yeah, so now that's my graveyard guitar. I'm going to be buried with that boy. So I'm going to take that with me to the spirit world for dang sure.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I have my grandpa's 55 Les Paul Jr. and yeah, that's my number one. I have a lot of really nice guitars. I'm very, very fortunate in that, but if I had to just keep one, that's the one for sure. Yeah. Yep.
Dude, that's a great guitar, man. Those juniors are amazing, dude.
I didn't really understand, like, when he first showed it to me when I was a kid. I knew that it was cool because it was an old Gibson, but I didn't really like fully get it when I was like 15 or whatever. And then a couple years later, I became a real gear nerd, and I really understood what it was. And so I the tuners on it were the original tuners, and the buttons were all falling off. And it needed a little bit of work to be, playing correctly. And so I was like, hey, and he didn't know, he was primarily a piano player. He could play guitar, but he mostly played piano. And I was like, hey, I'll take this up to this shop and get this done for you and bring it back. Then it'll at least play like it's supposed to, and you'll maybe play more often, type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I did. I took it up to the shop, and, it was fun for me going to the guitar store. Like, this is just a treat, just an excuse to go to Portland and go to guitar stores. So I took it up there, got it all dialed in for him, and brought it back. And I was like, yeah, here you go. It's ready to go. And he like played it a little bit, and he's like, why don't you just hold on to it? I'm like, what? Yeah. And I'm like, are you sure? He's like, well, you actually play guitar. I don't really play guitar. Like, it's just gonna sit in my closet. I'm like, okay. And I take it home, and I called my dad. This was my mom's dad is who it was. So but I called my dad, and I was like, Grandpa Carl just gave me his junior, and my dad also plays guitar. He's like, I got passed over.
You was his favorite.
Yeah, he's always my dad likes to bring it up once in a while. He's like, I got passed over. I'm like, you don't even play electric. I have to it's like pulling teeth to get you to play electric guitar anyway. He's got this other nice Gibson that he keeps in the closet, and he plays his acoustic guitars all the time. So
that's crazy, man. I like that.
Yeah, it's a special one for me. I have all these weird memories of like I remember like for Christmas like going over there and him and I sitting down like trying to figure out this AFI song.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's cool that my grandpa's sitting here listening to AFI with me while trying to figure this song out. Like,
dude, that's wild, man.
But yeah, he was a good guy. He was a real special dude.
That's cool. Yeah, I just found out probably 3 or 4 months ago that my grandpa actually played music. See, my grandpa, he was a trapper. Mm-hmm. That's all I knew him as. Like he would trap and like tan hides and make like drums and sell hides and stuff like that. I didn't know him as a musician until I was looking through some of our family photos, and I see my grandpa like holding an acoustic, and my jaw just dropped. And I went and talked to my mom, and I was like, "What? Papa was a musician?" She's like, "Oh yeah, he used to." They used to live in this little town in Fort Belknap called Hayes, and he's like, "Oh yeah, they used to like play like house parties all the time. I guess people would be like 12 o'clock at night, and people would come over and like knock on the door and be like, hey, we're having a get together at, this other house, down the street. And then they would just gather like all the local musicians and just like have like a huge, just like jam, like / house party, like back in like the 60s and 70s.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was wild. And then I came across another picture of my grandma holding like a resonator guitar. And come to find out that was also my grandpa's. And yeah, I had up until probably like a couple of months ago, I had no prior knowledge of, anybody really in my family being a musician. So that was really cool. That was a bit of new information for me.
That's amazing. It's not 100% this way, obviously. I know people who have no musicians in their family that are tremendous musicians themselves, but it does seem to be a trait mostly. Like, it seems like most people I know, if they are super into music, then somebody in their family also was a musician. And for me, it's like my whole family. Like, my dad played guitar. My mom sort of played guitar. She played piano. My grandpa played piano and guitar. My other grandpa played harmonica. Like, and even the ones that didn't play were music lovers. So it was like, it was just always a thing for me. It's kind of weird that I'm the only one that like really tried to make a living in the music world. It's actually surprising.
Yeah, that's the same here, man. I mean, like either, playing shows or making weird amps and instruments or pedals,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like didn't really have anybody that like really played in my family, but like you said, like my mom was like a huge music lover, like she listened to all these like different oldies stuff. And so so I grew an appreciation of music through her for sure.
Definitely. And I think I talked about this on one episode I recently recorded, but like I want to impart that in my kids, but I don't want to be the equivalent of the pushy football dad. Be like, you need to play a Telecaster. Like, you gotta come on. Like, it's what I want to do, but I don't actually want to do that to them if they're not interested in it.
Yeah, that's how my old man was. He was the pushy football dad, and man, I hated sports. I mean, I think honestly, I credit him for how much I love music because I hated sports that much more.
Yeah, I can relate. I didn't hate sports, but it was never my thing. I liked other things that were sport related. Like I liked skateboarding, and it's not that I didn't like physical activity. I was just like, I don't want to play football. I like playing football with my friends and horsing around, but like our football team was so terrible that me and my friends played the varsity team, like just outside of, just like on the football field, but just like on a random Saturday or something. And we beat them really bad. And it was just like, why do we want to be on that team?
That's how it worked for us too. Like literally, like I think what the heck was it? They would go seasons without any wins whatsoever for at my school. So yeah, I was also into skateboarding as well, and that kind of attributed to my builds. Because like I've been a tinkerer ever since I was a kid. Like I remember I would go visit one of my grandmas in Hayes, and she'd have like this old like bucket, just like a plastic bucket, and it was filled with all of these toys, and they were broken toys. And so what I would do is I would like this toy over here, like a He-Man figure, would have like be missing an arm, but this guy over here from some other series of cartoon or whatever had an arm, and I like this guy more. I would put together like basically pop off the legs and arms of this guy and put him on this one and create like a Frankenstein action figure. Like I was doing that when I was a kid, and then as time got older, I would do that with other things that I was into or passionate about, and that's what I was doing with like skateboarding. And then eventually as I got into music, I started Frankensteining guitars together too. So I kind of had like a little background of tinkering and putting things together before starting, this minor glitch thing.
When you were talking about that, I always was picturing was Sid from Toy Story, just like assembling Frankenstein toys.
Yeah, dude. But and then, but yeah, they was broken in the first place. So I'm not as evil as that kid. But come to find out, what she was doing is whenever she would like go to like the dumps or like the landfill there, she would go like find like these toys and pick them up and wash them off and throw them in the bucket. So I was playing with like these dumpster toys that I threw away, and I would pick them up and figure out how to utilize other parts to create, my own little unique Frankenstein toys.
That does kind of make sense, tying back to the whole reason we were talking in the first place with your repurposed ammo can guitar amp. The whole thing kind of becomes clearer when you look back at your childhood. Like for me, like some of my biggest memories are using like a Talkboy and like making quote unquote radio shows. And now here, I'm doing what now?
That's awesome, dude. I've always wanted a Talkboy, man. I should probably look into getting one now that I can probably afford one.
Yeah. Well, maybe not. They're probably you're probably paying the nostalgia tax on them now. They're probably like $100.
Yeah. But also, growing up, being like Native American, like you learn, about like, what your ancestors did too, like, my ancestors, they were plains people, so they hunted buffalo. And whenever they would kill a buffalo, they would utilize basically like every piece, you know what I mean? Like nothing would go to waste. They would, dry the meat, use the hides for like blankets and clothing and stuff like that. And then use the bones for tools or, or whatever. And so, growing up, I look back at that, whenever I'm building something. That's why I never throw anything away. If you look at my my storage, it's full of just dude, anything and everything, and I don't throw it away because I try to figure out how to utilize it some way or another. But yeah, that whole core of all of that came from, like my ancestors and stuff like that, and trying to figure out a new way how to utilize like those teachings and that like belief system, I guess.
What tribe was that?
Lakota.
Okay.
I'm I'm Lakota, Cheyenne River, Lakota. I'm enrolled. See, this is the weird thing about, like being native. Like you can grow up on like one reservation, but you can be like a federally recognized tribal member from a different reservation.
Oh, really?
Yeah, dude, it's wild, dude. Like, see, I'm enrolled with the Cheyenne River tribe, based out of Eagle Butte, South Dakota,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where all my like enrollment paperwork and stuff like that. So if I ever have to go and renew my tribal membership, I got to cruise all the way down to middle of nowhere, South Dakota. But we lived in South Dakota until probably like I was like 3, in Eagle Butte, South Dakota, and we moved up to Fort Belknap because that's where my mom's family's from. And see, my mom, she's Assiniboine, also known as that's kind of like a French word, but also known as Nakoda. So I'm Lakota and I'm Nakoda. And back in the day, like they were like a part of like the affiliated tribe,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and I try to incorporate that type of my cultural background into some of my builds too. Because did you what the heck was it? The PCBs that go into those ammo cans. Did you check those out at all?
I didn't see it. No.
Oh, dude. Yeah,
I'm going to pull it up right now.
Bro, okay. So the PCBs that go into each one of my 50 cal ammo cans, I had them die cut into the shape of Montana.
Oh,
and
dude.
Yeah. And also there are 7 reservations within our state, and there happen to be 7 components that make on the PCB that make my amps work. And so what I did was I had the guy who designed the layout for my PCB put the locations of the components in the locations of the reservations on our state map.
I found it. So cool.
Yeah, kind of have like a cultural, like historical background / like lesson / like Easter egg. Because if anybody ever, if anybody ever takes apart one of my amps and pulls out the PCB, they're gonna find like the reservations on the back of the PCB, and I kind of like that, just like a little Easter egg type of thing for a future tinkerer / curiosity or curious musician,
Yeah, I mean, when I get a pedal, 99% of the time, like before I even plug it in, I'm opening it up and looking inside just because I'm a big dork like that. So I appreciate those type of things. I really do. I think it's even cooler that it's such a personal thing for you. You know what I mean? Like that's a real piece of it's a piece of your history, really, that you're putting into your work. Yeah. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, just because there's not too many like Native American like gear builders out there. I think out of this whole journey that I've been on, I've only been able to find one other guy, and he runs a company called Native Audio, and he builds just strictly pedals, but they're amazing. Yeah,
and I've met him. He's the only other one I know of as well.
Right, dude. Right, man. So yeah, that's pretty wild. And come to find out, he grew up probably like 3 or 4 miles west of where I grew up. So we're from like the same area, And I thought that was wild because like until I found Mike and Native Audio, I was just like, man, am I the only one here, dude? Like the last unicorn type of thing. I'm like, I can't be, and then I accidentally came across Mike on Instagram and like reached out, and come to find out he's from Browning, which is that's the Blackfeet Reservation, and yeah, that's located on my PCB as well. And but yeah, I think he's based out of like Dayton or something, like Ohio, somewhere over there now.
Yeah, I think so. I need to get him on. I have a lot to talk about with him because he's had a wild like year and a half, 2 years. He got in a bad accident. And,
dude. Dude, I almost started crying, man. I thought homie was done for. I saw the picture, and man, I was reaching out, dude. Oh man, I'm glad that he was able to come out of that. You know what I mean? And came out strong.
Yeah. I mean, it was really, as terrible as that was, it was cool to see, the gear community, like at least on a small level, like come together to try to help him. I know like mutual friends of this podcast, the Flippin' Flippers podcast, they hold a pancake breakfast at NAM, and the year they did it when Mike was in his wreck, they got all the proceeds were going to help pay for that.
Dude,
and I'm sure it didn't cover all of it because that's a whole nother topic, but
that's a whole different ballpark, brother.
Yeah. But that's the best thing about like this gear community that I've seen is people really do like rally around and try to help out each other when things like that happen, and I think that's like the coolest thing about it.
Yeah, most definitely. But yeah, also by like incorporating, like my cultural background in my builds, as much as I can, I hope to like inspire like other people, like that grew up in like the situation in which I grew up in, because on like reservations, like there's very like the job market is not that great. You know what I mean?
Right.
And by inspiring like others to hopefully like work for themselves and think for themselves, maybe help like their local economy and stuff like that too, and help other people find their niche, or help find their passion, by seeing like one of like my builds, like putting things together that you wouldn't really think of, or creating something out of like junk and creating like a piece of art, and hopefully by doing that, I hope to like inspire others to kind of do the same, I guess.
100%. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we've reached almost the end of the podcast, and I still have a couple classic questions I got to ask you. But first, This is your chance to put up a billboard, so to speak. If you want to, tell a couple thousand people something, this is the time to do it. So where they can find you, or if you just got something you want to get off your chest, whatever it is, this is your time to shine.
Dude, you're okay. Yeah. For all those people listening out there, man, you guys are capable of anything that you put your mind to, hands down. If my old country butt can figure out how to create amps and pedals, man, you can do something too, My name is Mario Miner Jr., and I'm a Lakota, and I run Minor Glitch Electronics. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook. I'm just a little builder out of Bozeman, Montana. Yeah. Thanks for listening, dude.
Man, good stuff. All right, here we go. There's the last couple questions. Are you ready?
All right, what you got?
Number 1, what's your favorite Boss pedal?
Ooh, my favorite Boss pedal. Probably the tuner.
Solid pull. Hey, it's a great pedal.
It is. It's been like the longest, the pedal that I've had the longest. Yeah, I don't really dink around with Boss pedals too much, so probably just the tuner, the TU2 or whatever.
That works for me. It's a classic for a reason. All right, here's the one that it's a little rough. It's a little bit controversial. Just answer it however you see fit.
All right.
What's your favorite kind of pizza?
Oh, Mylanta, my dude. Let's see. Mine is kind of a you're digging into the big barrel of secrets here, my man. For me, it's an odd. I guess it's an odd put together. It's a pepperoni, spinach, and mushroom.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I know this is gonna be cringy. Pineapple, bro.
Oh, geez. Yeah, you almost had it.
I almost slid by, right, dude? And then you mix that with all the other stuff, dude. People are gonna think I'm a psychopath, man.
I say this all the time, but at least according to what I can see in the Facebook group around this podcast, which if you're listening and you happen to be on Facebook, it's the only good place on Facebook. So you can join if you want. It's just called the Tone Mob. It's in there. But at least according to what I can see, it's really about 50-50. Like people are like, people seem to be like, there's a lot of pineapple lovers out there. I'm not one of them. And it's just because I don't like pineapple in like, whether it's on pizza or not, I just don't like it. So, that's just me. I feel like though there are a lot of people who like pineapple but don't like it on pizza, and I don't really fully understand that. I don't quite get that. But whatever, that's fine.
I'm just like the human garbage disposal though, hands down. Like if something falls on the ground, I'll pick it up and eat it real quick.
Yeah.
Thinking about it straight up. My wife talks about that all the time. Criticizes me all the time.
I will do the same. So don't let her shame you about that.
All right, my dude.
If there's no dirt stuck to it, it's going in my mouth. Like that's all there is to it.
There you go. And if there is, just blow it off. Easy enough.
That's right. Exactly. It'll be fine. I mean, that said, this was pre-COVID, so like I'm not doing that right now.
Still roll the dice from time to time. I'm a gambling man, you see.
In my own home, I will, but not anywhere else. Not anywhere else.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Right on, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on. We're gonna slide over and do a little Patreon action now, folks. But thank you for listening, and dude, thank you so much for coming on. This has been awesome.
Man, this has been amazing, man. This is a good first experience. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. For Mario, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right, there you have it, folks. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I had a ton of fun talking to Mario. We have a lot in common, as it turns out. And it was really, really an enjoyable experience. So if you need more and you want to hear those, again, alleged stories that may or may not have happened, you can go to patreon.com/tonemob and check those out. If they happened, right? It's still a mystery. So you go to patreon.com/tonemob for $5 a month. You too can get extra episodes beamed to your ears every month. We're getting close to 100 extra episodes in the back catalog over there. So there is a ton of extra content if that is what you so desire. All right. Thank you so much. Please share this with a friend if you really enjoyed it. Please share any episode that you have particularly enjoyed with anyone who you think could get something out of it. Every download counts, and every download puts a couple pennies in my pocket. Actually, no, fractions of a penny, but you get it anyway. So every download counts. So thank you so much, people. You guys rule. Talk to you next week. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.